Okay, so to understand our wellhead area, we have to look at the timeline that got us to where we are. So we have the 1990s, mid to early, early 2000s, 2010, and 2016. So in the 90s, we did initially apply for a wellhead protection area. Basically, we only applied for the map, not for the actual plan. So in 97, we had done some improvements to our public water supply. So NDEQ sent us a letter saying, hey, you should apply for this plan. In 98, we did have high nitrates come back. Might be a little hard to see, but that did come back at 16.8 parts per million from our city well. So we did have a map get drawn up. This is from 99. And as you can see, we do have our wellhead area split into two parts. So we have our main area up on the north. We do have the Women's Center over here to the west. They had their own area at the time. And then down here to the south, we do have one emergency well located south of the interstate. So they have that second area. And then just looking at time of travel, this is for the north part that encompasses the city. And then our one emergency well to the south. So then getting into the 2000s, we did have some high nitrate issues. Here you can see what some of our city wells were testing at throughout the 2000s. We were receiving administrative orders from the state. And one of the things that they have on here is implementing a wellhead protection program. So like I said, we had a map, but we didn't have a plan. And then in 2010, we did receive a letter from the DEQ saying, hey, we'll draw you a new map for free. You just have to fill out some paperwork. So we did apply for that. I cannot find a map, but the Women's Center here did get annexed into our wellhead area. So then that brings us to our 2016, where we actually did apply for a plan. So the first step on the plan is to delineate a wellhead protection area. So we finally had a pretty good map redrawn. As you can see, we do have that one big area now, the one well to the south. And then this also has our 50-year time of travel, whereas before we were only out to 20 years. And so just giving you a brief view of where our wells are located within the city of York. And then the next step to perform your contaminant source inventory. So this drew from a lot of different sources. So we have them all listed here. The dates are when we obtained that data. So most of it was completed in 2016. JEO was the company we were working with our plan. They did the on-ground field inventory in late December of 2015. So then looking at the contaminant sources, so this just shows you where those sources were within the city of York and the surrounding area within the wellhead area. So this is just for the north part. And then for our emergency well to the south. And then this is for the regulated facilities that DEQ provided for us, showing you where those were within our area. And then this is for the wells that we have within the wellhead area. So they found these in a lot of high numbers. So we have 266 irrigation wells within this area, 224 monitoring wells, which most of these were with the DE registered facilities. And then we have 78 abandoned wells. So quite a bit of wells within this area. So then the next step is to manage your potential contaminants. So this graph here just shows you where our nitrates have been in the past 10 years. So 2006 through 2016. So you can see that we were having wells that were showing high nitrates. The orange line is at 5.6 parts per million, and that's when your nitrate sampling used to be quarterly versus yearly. The red line at 10, that's safe level. So we were having quite a few wells that were getting pretty high nitrates. This map shows well sampled from 94 through 2014, so 20 years. The median nitrate value of the wells shown here in 2014 was at 14 milligrams per liter, so pretty high. And then within our district, we do have management zones, and so the wellhead protection area encompasses two of our zones, zone 5 and zone 6. It is a half mile from zone 7 here in the south. But in 2014, zone 5 was already in a phase 3 management area, and zone 6 was in a phase 2 management area. If we look at today's map or map from last year, zone 6 is now in a phase 3 area, 11 parts per million as their median. New York jumped up to 13. So yeah. So then other emerging contaminants that we were focused on, one of them was looking at nitrates in uranium. So they had to look at some studies that had been done at that time, showing that there is a correlation, but they weren't really sure how they interacted with each other. One of the ski wells was already experiencing issues with uranium levels. So it was on our radar, we just didn't know a whole lot about it. And so then that brought us to doing our own study between 2014 and 2016, where we sampled wells across our district to try to figure out what was going on there. And then we also did arsenic and selenium sampling with that as well. So then another thing that they were looking at was existing groundwater contamination. We've been working with EPA and NDE to look at these sites and to do cleanup. These weren't a focus of our wellhead protection area, but the public was very aware of what was going on, and they were wanting to know basically the groundwater quality within the city of York. So these were the sites that are around York. So we have a missile site located about 5 miles west of York. Cleanup began in 2008, and from last I checked, they are still doing cleanup on that site. We had an old landfill that closed. It did impact several domestic wells in the area. And then we have a grain bin site located in Northeast York, and that's on the EPA Superfund list. We have another Northeast site, which is actually about a half mile from here, located on the Superfund site, and then the Southeast site, which is in our downtown area. The main culprit on that was dry cleaners, also on the Superfund site, and the EPA just recently started cleaning up on that site. So this is one of the Northeast sites, so we're about here. So you can see it just goes about south from our office. And then this is our Southeast side. That's from our downtown area going to the southeast. Okay, so step 4 was to develop emergency and contingency plans. So DHHS requires that we have a public water system emergency response plan, which we do have. Part of the Wellhead Protection Plan was to be a member of the Nebraska Water Wastewater Agency Response Network, and that's just to help prepare for their any emergencies that might come up, as well as sharing resources with other entities across the state. And then for long-term planning, so the city has an adequate supply and acceptable quality of drinking water, looking at our historical growth patterns of population. Just to help identify potential future sources of water. Since we are a growing city, back in 2016, we were about 7,600 people. We have now grown to over 8,000. And in 2009, we had constructed 6 new wells. So at the time, they weren't as concerned about constructing any new wells. So drought conservation planning. So agriculture is the primary sector affected by drought. However, it can impact rural and municipal water supplies. So with these 3 plans up here, York decided to not be a member of them at the time. I couldn't find any information to see if we had become one of these. And then the last step in getting a plan is to educate and involve the public. So we had quite a few meetings. We had a kickoff meeting in April of 2015, our 2 stakeholder meetings in early 2016, and then a public open house in May of 2016. So just a meeting summary of those 2 stakeholder meetings. So the first one is just kind of a kickoff to see what the group needs to be responsible for, looking at the plan, how it's progressing, looking at the updated map and our contaminant source inventory. Second meeting was just looking at a reviewed plan and then discussing other steps that needed to be done. So then at our open house that we had in May, 17 members of the public attended, and then the city did receive an award from the Groundwater Foundation for the groundwater guarding green site. And then that picture just shows us receiving that award. And then looking forward, in June 2016, City Council voted to approve our map. And then October 2016, they voted on an ordinance to adopt the Wellhead Protection Area plan. And then in 2017, DE accepted our plan.